The U.S. tells Russia it won't seek the death penalty for NSA leaker Edward Snowden. We'll have that and more right here, right now on Lunch Break. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Simon Constable in for Wendy. WSJ's Devlin Barrett joins us now from our bureau in Washington with more of this news from the Justice Department. Devlin, there's a letter gone out from Eric Holder to Russia saying they won't seek the death penalty, right?
Right, Simon. And what they're laying out is they're trying to convince Russia not to grant Edward Snowden any form of temporary asylum. And part of the way they're trying to convince them to do that is they're saying, look, we will not seek the death penalty against him, even if we add a death penalty eligible charge against him at some point. We will still not seek the death penalty. And we will also not torture him, and we will put him through the normal U.S. court system.
Okay, and it's Eric Holder, Attorney General, saying this. Now, on the second page of the letter, it says Mr. Snowden will not be tortured. Torture is unlawful in the United States. And yet torture itself in the U.S. has undergone a sort of a redefinition over the last decade or so, where things that might have been considered torture before are not considered now. Do you think this is going to be particularly convincing to the Russians?
I think, look, the argument about the definition of torture is one in which Eric Holder and the Obama administration have been very clear that they think the things that were done under the Bush administration were torture. So I think when Holder says he will not be tortured, that's taken as a pretty wide, inclusive statement. What's interesting to me about the letter is more to your point, which is you're saying these things. Now, in a normal extradition process, these would sort of be very basic and obvious points to make by the U.S., but the Snowden case is so charged and everyone is so suspicious of everyone else. It's interesting to me that you have to lay this all out in such bare bones terms just to try and get to the next step. And does Russia believe him? Look, I think there's a lot of suspicion on both sides in this.
I bet there is. Now, the other thing is that Edward Snowden saying he can't travel, he has no travel documents, and there's a great line in this letter saying, not true, he's eligible for a limited validity passport, good for direct return to the US. The one place that Edward Snowden doesn't want to go.
Right.
That seems like almost cheeky.
Yeah, there's an element, there are elements of farce to this whole case, right? And I think that's a particular sort of unique and in a weird way, bureaucratic way of describing his ability to travel. But it's part of this dance, and you know, you've taken the extradition process, which is supposed to be a criminal process, and it's basically, in the case of Mr. Snowden, it's become very, very political, and everything's very loaded. So they're basically trying to put diplomatic and political pressure on Russia to send him home, essentially. And so far, it doesn't look like Russia is particularly interested in forcing Mr. Snowden to do that.
Interesting stuff. And great story. Thank you very much, Devlin Barrett. We appreciate your time.